In this special video, I will show you 8 types of people we should not help. You will be surprised by the last one. But before we start, I want you to pay close attention to this story, as it will be very important for you to understand the great lesson of this video. Once upon a time, there was a farmer named Joe who lived in a small village. Joe was known for his kindness and was always willing to help others. One day, he found a snake trapped in a snare in his field. Although it was dangerous, Joe felt compassion for the snake and decided to set it free. Joe took care of the snake, feeding it and giving it a safe place to recover. However, as soon as the snake felt better, it bit Joe and slithered away. Joe, hurt and surprised, realized that the snake's nature was to bite no matter how much help it received. This story teaches us that some people, like the snake, do not change their nature. Sometimes, in our desire to help, we can ignore the signs and end up getting hurt. It is crucial to know who we help and understand that not everyone will value or appreciate our efforts. Imagine your energy is like a battery. Some people recharge it, while others drain it faster than a phone with 100 apps open. Sound familiar? Well, let's explore these energy vampires and why it is crucial to recognize them. Before diving into the first type of person, if you find value in these videos, please subscribe and click the bell to stay updated. Let's begin. Number 1. The ingrates. Have you ever met someone who seems to have a black hole instead of a heart? Those people who, no matter how much you give them, always want more and are never satisfied. Imagine you are at a restaurant, enjoying a delicious dinner with friends. Suddenly, you hear someone loudly complaining about the food, the service, even the color of the napkins. Yes, you've guessed it. It's the professional ingrate in action. But why do some people seem perpetually dissatisfied? Psychology has some interesting answers. According to a study by the University of California, people with low self-esteem tend to be less grateful. It's like they have a filter that only lets the negative pass through, blocking all the good that life offers them. Now, we're not saying you should cut ties with everyone who forgets to say thank you, but it's important to recognize when someone is constantly abusing your kindness. As the famous businessman Richard Branson once said, "Treat your employees as you want them to treat your best customers." We could extend this advice to all our relationships. Think of gratitude as a plant. It needs to be watered and cared for to grow. If you are constantly giving water, your time, energy, resources, to a plant that never blooms, perhaps it's time to ask yourself if you're cultivating in the wrong garden. But be careful not to confuse ingratitude with constructive honesty. Your friend who tells you that you have spinach in your teeth before an important date isn't an ingrate. They're a hero without a cape. The difference lies in the intention and the pattern of behavior. A fascinating study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology revealed that people are not only happier but also have stronger and more enduring relationships when gratitude is present. It's as if gratitude is the invisible glue that holds our social connections together. Now then, what do we do with these people? The answer is not simple, but we can take some lessons from positive psychology. Martin Seligman, considered the father of this branch of psychology, suggests that cultivating gratitude benefits not only the receiver but also the giver. So instead of getting frustrated with ingrates, we might see them as an opportunity to strengthen our own ability to appreciate the good in life. It's like going to the gym but for our gratitude muscle. However, let's not confuse being grateful with being a bottomless pit. Setting healthy boundaries is as important as being generous. As the writer Brené Brown once said, "Generosity is not infinite, and it isn't true generosity if it comes from resentment." Remember, their lack of gratitude says more about them than it does about you. As the psychologist Carl Rogers once said, "The curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change." So the next time you encounter an ingrate, take a deep breath, remember your own worth, and ask yourself, does this person deserve my energy? If the answer is no, it's okay to take a step back. You're not being selfish, you're practicing self-care. And if you decide to continue helping, do it because you genuinely want to, not because you expect recognition. As the philosopher Immanuel Kant said, "Act in such a way that you use humanity, both in your person and in the person of any other, always at the same time as an end, never merely as a means." Now let's move on to the second type of person we should not help. Number 2, the lazy. Have you ever met someone who seems to have an allergy to effort? Those people who always have an excuse for not doing anything, as if the couch were their natural habitat and the remote control an extension of their hand? Welcome to the fascinating world of the lazy, those masters of the art of doing nothing who teach us valuable lessons about productivity or the lack thereof. Imagine you are in a work meeting, and you hear someone say, "I couldn't finish the report because my cat ate my motivation." Yes, you've guessed it. It's the professional lazy person in action. But why do some people seem to have a PhD in procrastination? Science has some interesting answers. According to a study by the University of Calgary, laziness might actually be an evolutionary strategy to conserve energy. It's as if our caveman ancestors bequeathed us the energy-saving or battery-saving mode gene. But in today's world, where we don't need to save energy to escape predators, this strategy can become counterproductive. The psychologist William James once said, "Nothing is so fatiguing as the eternal hanging on of an incomplete task," and he was right. Procrastination not only affects our productivity but also our mental health. A study published in the Journal of Psychological Science found that people who procrastinate regularly have higher levels of stress and worse health overall. But all is not lost for our lazy friends. As the famous physicist Albert Einstein once said, "Laziness is the mother of all inventions." And while he probably said it while looking for an excuse not to comb his hair, he has a point. Sometimes, the need to avoid work can lead to creative and innovative solutions. Now then, how do we identify a chronic lazy person? Here are some warning signs. The king of excuses. These individuals have more excuses than a cat has lives. "I couldn't exercise because my plant needed me to sing to it to grow," is just the tip of the iceberg. The expert in "I'll do it tomorrow." For them, tomorrow is a magical place where all pending work accumulates. Spoiler alert, that tomorrow never comes. The multitasker of leisure. They can watch Netflix, scroll through Instagram, and complain about their work all at the same time. If they put that energy into being productive, they probably would have solved global warming by now. The shortcut seeker. Always looking for the easiest way to do things. If there were an app to breathe for you, they would be the first to download it. The 5 more minutes. For them, the alarm clock is just a friendly suggestion. Just 5 more minutes, they say, and before they know it, an hour has passed. Now, we're not saying you should cut ties with everyone who prefers a nap over a gym session. But remember, surrounding ourselves with lazy people risks turning us into the sore thumb in a hand of slackers. As Jim Rohn, entrepreneur and motivational author, said, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So choose your company wisely, because you might end up being the only tooth in a mouthful of motivational cavities." Now let's move on to the third type of person. Number 3, the irresponsible. Have you ever met someone who seems to live in a world without consequences? Welcome to the fascinating universe of the irresponsible, those experts in dodging commitments and blaming everything and everyone but themselves. Imagine you are on a boat, and suddenly you notice there's a hole in the hull and water is starting to pour in. While you and the rest of the crew are desperately trying to plug the hole and bail out the water, you see someone sitting calmly on the deck, sunbathing, and saying, "It's not my problem. I didn't make the hole." That, my friends, is the irresponsible in their natural habitat. When we try to help someone with this behavior pattern, we often find ourselves in a frustrating cycle. No matter how hard we try to support them, our help rarely results in significant progress. The irresponsible avoid responsibilities and have an almost Olympic ability to blame others for their own failures. If something goes wrong, even if it is completely unrelated to our intervention, we can end up being pointed out as the culprits. This is not only unfair but can also take a significant emotional and reputational toll on those trying to help. Therefore, it is essential to adopt a careful approach when dealing with people who behave this way. An effective strategy is to invite them to reflect on their actions and the consequences they entail. Instead of solving their problems for them, we can guide them to develop self-evaluation and self-management skills. Neuroscientist Richard Davidson has shown that the brain is incredibly plastic, capable of changing and adapting even in adulthood. So there is hope, although they may need a nudge or perhaps a push the size of an asteroid. Now, you might wonder how we distinguish a person who needs a little help and motivation from an incorrigibly irresponsible person. The answer lies in the pattern of behavior and the willingness to change. We all have our moments of irresponsibility. No one is perfect. However, when irresponsibility becomes a recurring theme and the person shows no interest in improving or learning from their mistakes, we have a problem. As author Mark Twain once said, "The secret to getting ahead is getting started." But if someone doesn't want to even take the first step, maybe it's time to let them sail their own boat, whole and all. Therefore, the next time you encounter someone who seems to have their PhD in the art of dodging responsibilities, take a deep breath, assess the situation, and decide whether it is worth investing your time and energy. Remember that helping is good, but not at the cost of sinking your own boat. We can offer guidance and support, but the change must come from them. As the psychologist Carl Rogers once said, "The only person who is educated is the one who has learned how to learn and change."